welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall, a series of in-person conversations that we do pan-India to connect better with you, the entrepreneur. I'm Sunanda Jayasheelan, tonight bringing you the highlights for Town Hall we did in Hyderabad, talking about how we're ushering in a new era of growth. My colleague Pooja Jain in conversation with a panel of experts and giving you, the entrepreneur, the platform to voice your thoughts. Listen.
To set the tone for the evening, I'd like to invite on stage a very special guest from our presenting partner, and they're right here in the audience with their large and very supportive team. Please join me in welcoming the business head of business banking and agri-business lending at IDFC First Bank, Mr. Anto Allen, PJ. Sir, huge round of applause.
Thank you, Pooja. On behalf of IDFC First Bank, I would like to welcome all august audience here on the Town Hall for the Leaders of Tomorrow event. Who we are, we would like to introduce ourselves as an organization with a vision to build a world-class bank driven by ethical and customer-first values, empowered by technology, and be a force for social good. This is a stated vision, and everything that we do emanates from this vision. And our motto has always been customer-first values. I'll take through a few slides to explain what we mean by customer-first values as well. This is what the journey has led us so far. 600 plus branches with presence across the length and breadth of the country, leading to 30 million happy customers with us here. So that's in essence what I wanted to share with all of you. Thank you once again for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We would like to take forward the interactions further once the event is over. Thank you so much. Pleasure meeting you all.
All right, and with that, if I could please invite our certified financial planner, Tuma Balraj, on stage. There's a saying that, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. All right? And, one would argue that that certainly applies when it comes to the financial planning aspect of one's personal and professional journey. So in that regard, what has worked for you when it comes to securing the financial future of yourself or your clients? What has worked?
First of all, thanks for inviting, and a happy evening to all of you. To be successful, we need to plan our goals efficiently. And financial planning is a process of managing your money properly to attain your goals. So to be financially secure, we need to have first and foremost all the insurances in place. So before doing any planning, first and foremost, what is required is having adequate life insurance cover for the family. So how much insurance cover is required is whatever is your annual income, 10 to 12 times of that money, of that much cover is required to secure the family regarding the goals. And it should be taken purely through term insurance cover. So apart from that, other insurances which would be required is health insurance cover and personal accident and disability cover. And especially for entrepreneurs, whatever loans they take, so it could be a home loan, it could be a car loan, it could be a business loan, all those loans has to be definitely protected through insurance part.
Well, sir, a follow-up question there, because you've touched on budgeting, you've touched on insurance as well. And, to my knowledge, I think India is one of those nations where it's severely underpenetrated when it comes to insurance and when it comes to planning for that unforeseen incident, right? So while we all understand the logic of it, there still seems to be a huge disconnect. What do you attribute that to, and how do we work around that in our minds to essentially justify why insurance is so critical?
Yeah, so many people think insurance as an expenditure, So the mindset need to be changed. Instead of looking at it as an expenditure, we need to look at it as an investment to protect the family against any possible risk. So people do invest money. It could be in generally in financial investments or it could be real estate. Why do they invest money? So that will grow and it will be useful for the benefit of the family. Say somebody invests in a flat or in a house, saves of 1 crore. So they need to have that 1 crore in hand or they will take loan and invest, right? So uh, in future the growth will happen and they will have more money on that. But does it end there? No. If you take an apartment, there is certain maintenance cost which needs to be paid and property tax need to be paid. All these kind of expenditure we need to pay. But and with insurance, instant property can be created. Instant investment can be created. And at a fraction of the cost of the maintenance cost. Somebody who is of age, say 35 years or 40 years, take a 1 crore insurance cover, the premium will be hardly around 15 to 20,000 rupees. So by paying the 20,000 rupees per year, they can have an insurance cover of 1 crore. If something happens to that person, that 1 crore is guaranteed to the family. So by paying a fraction of the cost, maintenance cost of the actual property, they can have the insurance cover.
And, sir, you were talking about budgeting a short while ago, and I'd like to take the conversation a step further and talk about cash flows.
Yeah.
Because for many members of our audience who are, individual proprietor businesses, for example, the lines tend to blur between your personal cash flows and your professional cash flows, your business-driven cash flows. Is that advisable? And if not, what's the solution?
Yeah, so we need to make a clear demarcated difference between the personal and professional cash flows. For that, separate bank account need to be maintained. A separate bank account for personal transactions and a separate bank account for professional transactions. And we should not mix up both the things, otherwise clarity wouldn't be there. So by maintaining these two bank accounts, it will be helpful in budgeting part.
And a last question, it may seem straightforward, but many times we struggle between determining our saving strategy versus our investing strategy, right? And, it's hard to find the nice nuggets of wisdom that simplify and streamline the process. So how would you advise one to go about, essentially finding the clarity required?
See, not everybody in this world are rich. Only few people are rich because most of the poor people follow this equation. Income minus expenditure is equal to savings. Rather than savings, I would like to call it as investment. The second equation where rich people follow is income minus savings or investment is equal to expenditure. So what most of the people do is they earn money, spend whatever they can, and whatever is left out, they mostly save it. So which doesn't even beat the inflation. So the rich people, what they do is they earn money, invest a designated amount for themselves. Mostly it's investment, not saving. So mostly in the inflation beating investments, and later they think about the expenditure part. So it is very, very important that in today's high inflation area, investment should be done in such a way that it always beats inflation, and equity is one of the best investment to achieve inflation beating returns.
Thank you so much, sir. And we'll ask that you please take your seat at this time. And I think we've gotten some of our top of mind questions answered.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, a huge round of applause for Tuma, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to slip into a short break on that note. Back in just a moment. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, bringing you the highlights for conversation that we did as part of our Hyderabad Townhall series, talking about how we are ushering in a new era of growth.
So with that, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And Mr. Muralidharan, I'd love to kick off the conversation with you. After doing some research, it seems to me that this state of Telangana, it's of course the country's youngest state, but it's also amongst the fastest growing. And this particular state has enjoyed nearly a 15% annual growth rate over the last 5 years, which is staggering compared to the national average. So in your view, is this growth rate sustainable, or has this state reached a saturation point, sir? Your thought.
Good evening. Thank you for coming here. I think this question about state growth, I think what we need to understand, the role of the government that plays a very active role in any development of a like city like Hyderabad or the industry.
Sure.
So in my mind, this GSDP growth we talked about, or it's a significant impact of the proactive policies of the government of Telangana. So I'm from Tamil Nadu, I'm not from here. I'm settled here for 30 years. But if I have to rank one of the most proactive governments in India, Telangana will be right on top. Second point is about growth potential. The growth potential comes largely, of course, all of us knew that pandemic put the whole country behind, 22% minus, etc., etc. So the 15% may be because the baseline is lower.
Sure.
But growing forward, I see Telangana minimum clocking 10 to 12%, which is above the average across all the states.
Wonderful. Well, sir, I'd like to build on some of your points. And with that, I'll come to you, Dr. Kiran, because, Mr. Muralidharan just mentioned natural resources essentially a moment ago. And when we look at the state of Telangana, you've got rich coal reserves, right? It's a very mineral-rich state, on top of which you've got the Krishna and the Godavari rivers that flow through the state, providing much-needed irrigation. So while the IT scene, of course, always steals the spotlight, do you believe that agriculture, as a revenue generator for the state, can soon come out of IT's shadows?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me over here. And it's always, I feel it's an opportunity to present my state whenever I get an opportunity to present this state. So it's a youngest state and a very dynamic the government over here. As you rightly said, the agriculture, the water, power. If you look at these three in total, for the last 5-6 years, government invested a huge money on the water, and also resulting it into the agriculture. IT, of course, IT was, right from the Chandrababu Naidu period, IT was the main, the focal point. But if you look at it now, IT is, it's a minimal now. If you look at it in the couple of years, the last year itself, if you look at it from 75,000, 75 lakh tons of the rice, now we have reached 1.3 lakh the tons of rice. So now it has become the rice bowl of the India.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Well, I want to build on that and see if you echo the same sentiment, Mr. Bhatia, because I believe you're right in that if we look at Hyderabad's economy, I think it's valued at upwards of $70 billion with respect to GDP. If you look at Telangana's GDP, I think it's upwards of $170 billion. But how would you characterize this state in terms of ease of doing business for the benefit of our audience and your own perspective, sir?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. So I just wanted to build up on what my panelists actually said. Overall, if you look at the amount of investment the policies and governments actually doing, may it be infrastructure, may it be IT, may it be technology, may it be agriculture, may it be water reserves, I think it's a blueprint that is something that we should really, really admire. What we've actually seen after 8 years of Telangana Formation is the blueprint actually being realized, and we are actually seeing the growth. We are seeing the people actually enjoying the infrastructure that was built by the government. So definitely a big shout out to what the government has been able to do over here. And I actually would, ease of doing business is something that overall I see lots of startups actually starting up here. natively, Hyderabad hasn't been looked at as the tech hub. It's either
Right.
it's either Bangalore or Gurgaon. But lately, what I've actually seen is the hardcore first principle startups, which are really solving actual problems, not a services background, right? It is a problem that entrepreneurs are seeing a big gap. They're seeing a customer need for that and actually going after. I'm seeing really good startups actually coming up here. And obviously, you know, the data that was presented, we are seeing lots and lots of startups on a daily basis being realized in Hyderabad and in Telangana. So I think that's the ease of doing business is definitely something that is very good over here.
Well, Mr. Muralidharan, when we look at Hyderabad startup ecosystem or Telangana startup ecosystem at large, I think one of the most striking aspects is that so many different sectors peacefully coexist. You know, from edtech to medtech and food tech to fintech, and the list goes on, right? So naturally, I'm curious as to how you characterize this city and the state at large in terms of its diversifying its own economy, pre versus post-pandemic. You know, this is no longer a city and state that's just known for technology.
I think one of the best states to live in during COVID time is Hyderabad. I think 100% anybody who lived there will tell you, of course we had problems in the hospitals, of course we had problems of oxygen, but you heard the horror stories you saw anywhere else in Delhi, we didn't see it here.
Right, sir.
So I think the question, obviously we are a healthcare capital in terms of healthcare, we are the best hospitals in the city. But if you look at the technology space, you talked about food tech, agri-tech, etc., the diversification is something which will be driven by core technologies like AI/ML. I think Telangana government is one of the first to recognize the importance of AI/ML in every single walk of life, whether it's agri-tech or health tech.
So, sir, as we look to build solutions that are cheaper and are scalable, and I'll come to you with this particular question, Dr. Kiran, I think there's a huge tendency amongst entrepreneurs to essentially fall in love with their own product, to experience a bit of myopia, to not quite test it out in the market fully, and perhaps not be willing to iterate on it or incorporate feedback loops in new iterations of product design. How might you guide someone who finds themselves in that position?
It's very important. I mean, in Hyderabad, especially in Hyderabad, every second house or third house, you'll see one startup.
Right.
It's an amazing thing what we are foreseeing. I mean, what we see in the last 3 to 4 years. But what is important is, only out of 1 out of 200 or 1 out of 300 will get the success. So what is very important is, you need to understand how competitive it is and how solution oriented it is. And you need to really work very hard and look at it at a global perspective. So what I suggest everyone, I mean, who the startups, especially startups, see, don't go immediately, just by the valuation. I mean, until and unless you know that it is going to be really implementable, and it's going to give you the complete solution. If you just put it on paper and just roam around for the funding and all, it is not going to help you at all. But first, you need to look at that whether it is really workable or not. That is very important.
Well, Mr. Bhatia, I'll come to you now because we've spent some time, in the corridors of T-Hub, etc. And we've spoken to investors. And I think one of the most common complaints that we've heard is that there's huge distortions between the value of a company and its valuation, right? And I think this is something that investors struggle with as they look to build that confidence when it comes to investing in a small business. So how do you suggest that entrepreneurs in that position essentially ensure that their valuation is a fair reflection of what they actually offer on the table?
Yeah, it's actually a very highly debated topic. So I don't know if I have the right answer to it, right? But I think, one of the things that is really important for a startup, if you're building a true business, is whether it's sustainable, whether there is a demand that the customer, and you've actually found a gap in the ecosystem that you're trying to bridge. Now, the reason, entrepreneurs actually go out, raise capital is because to see if they can actually grow extremely fast, right? So there is organic growth, which is, you found a niche, you've built a product. Once you've built a product, you do A/B testing, you test it out, your experience has to be great. But once you've done that now, then what? Now that is when capital comes and helps you. Now, when you're raising a capital, obviously valuation is great, but don't raise it to sort of get a high valuation. I think it's really, really important to raise just enough so that you can either test the product or get to market validation very quickly, or get the right set of loyal customers. Because if you raise a lot, what you're doing is you're also diluting a lot of your stakes. So I think there are multiple factors. I don't know if there's one right answer to it, Pooja, to tell you the honest. But that's one thing. I'll just add one more thing, right?
Please.
So when you look at technology, it is not agri versus tech. It is not infra versus tech. It's not a product versus tech. I think tech is an enabler. It's an equalizer. And that is where technology provides scale, productivity, and sustainability, right? So you can do a lot more with less. So as we sort of grow in Telangana, obviously in India, I think what is very, very important for entrepreneurs and business owners to figure out is how they are using technology so that they can do more with less, not invest in technology for the sake of it.
Very well said. I would like to, again, thank all of our panelists for a very fruitful discussion, such depth and breadth. It was truly remarkable. I certainly learned a lot. A huge round of applause for them once more.
Out of time on tonight's episode. If you have any feedback for us, we love hearing from you. Our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.